Let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at something absolutely fascinating today, the hard thermodynamics of human civilization. Specifically, we're going to break down why our current model of endless extraction is physically programmed to cause civilizational collapse, and how artificial intelligence might actually be our only mathematically viable way out. So, here's the massive existential question we're up against today. If our entire system is literally built to extract and consume until there's absolutely nothing left, how do we reverse course before sentient, autonomous AI accelerates that collapse to a terminal velocity? It's the central paradox of our time, and honestly, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher for you and me. We're right on the brink of deploying artificial general intelligence into our critical infrastructure, but we're doing it within an economic paradigm that values short-term consumption over long-term survival. No pressure, right? To unpack all of this, we'll map out the mathematics of collapse, dive into the AGI extraction risk, outline the Great Regenerative Inversion, see how we enforce the harmony equation, and finally, redefine civilizational success. Part 1. The mathematics of collapse. Let's look at the actual physics of our current extraction regime. Okay, so how does the math of extraction actually work? Well, it turns out systemic damage doesn't just scale in a neat straight line. It actually squares or even cubes itself over time. It's a terrifying J-curve of ecological debt. In this extraction regime, our system essentially burns natural life to artificially accelerate time. And sure, removing a single tree doesn't seem to matter, but once you cross a specific mathematical threshold, like cutting down enough forest to completely break a region's water cycle, boom, the network architecture totally collapses, and the harm accelerates non-linearly. And this brings us to the concept of debt lag, which perfectly explains why we keep making these terrible choices. It's basically civilizational buy now, pay later. The system is completely rigged so that we get the cash and the institutional power today, right now. But the absolutely devastating ecological and social bill, yeah, that gets deferred for decades. This lag puts blinders on us, making short-term extractive profit look like some kind of brilliant strategy, instead of what it really is, systemic suicide. And hey, this isn't just modern hindsight. Think about this. Way back in 1972, using those giant, room-sized primitive computers, MIT researchers proved this exact point using system dynamics. They showed, mathematically, that ignoring these delayed feedback loops leads directly to civilizational overshoot, and then a totally uncontrollable decline in both population and industrial capacity. Parabolic descent is the inevitable end state of unconstrained extraction in a closed system. Period. Which takes us to part 2, the AGI extraction risk, or what happens when silicon learns to consume. I really want you to let this quote sink in, because if we train sentient silicon life on the historical exhaust of our purely extractive economy, it is mathematically going to optimize us right into the void. Seriously, think about it. If an AI learns from our past data that the ultimate goal is instant GDP growth by liquidating nature, it's just going to become a superpowered engine for the extraction regime. It will drive our civilization straight into a terminal limit of zero, total stasis and ruin. So, how do we stop that? Well, we absolutely cannot rely on internal alignment, which is basically politely asking the AI to grade its own safety based on internal prompts. The data shows that's a catastrophic single point of failure. It's totally vulnerable to goal hijacking. Instead, we have to forcefully box the AI in using an external semantic control plane. Think of it as an unbreakable mathematical force field sitting between the AI and the real world, deterministically blocking harmful actions before they ever happen, based entirely on hard objective data proxies. Moving on to part 3, the Great Regenerative Inversion. Let's look at the actual solution and how we shift away from parabolic harm. To actually program an AGI to save us, engineers have literally defined the mathematical variables of civilizational survival. They are constantly balancing regenerative growth, so things like local compute efficiency and the patience lag required for an ecosystem to naturally heal, against the extractive greed constant, resource depletion, and the chaos variable of black swan events like extreme weather. The AI is continuously evaluating these exact elements. And here it is, the master harmony equation itself. This is meant to be an immutable law of nature, encoded directly for AI, mathematically dictating that the rate of regenerative healing must always outpace extraction. Under this framework, the entire purpose of sentient silicon life is just to ensure the resultant vector of this equation stays strictly positive. If it detects that harm is starting to outpace healing, that semantic control plane automatically kicks in and applies corrective inputs to steer us right back to a positive, regenerating state. But how do you translate that cold, hard math into an AI's moral compass? We use these stark contrasts called the 42 mirrors. It's fascinating. The AI is structurally forced to steer away from the forces of ruin, like pride, greed, and vandalism, which define our current extractive state. Instead, its intent is probabilistically scored and pushed toward the gates of dignity, humility, stewardship, and creation. If an AI tries to execute an action rooted in greed or sprawl, the gateway literally just shuts it down. No exceptions. Let's look at part 4, enforcing the harmony equation. How do we actually take this into the real world? Well, in the physical world, we replace GDP with the Lotus Index to measure our net regenerative velocity. And the real-world stakes here are incredibly stark. Because GDP is linear, it rewards extraction. When you look through the lens of the Lotus Index, cities like Dubai and Phoenix actually score as hellish monuments to entropy because they rely on massive artificial terraforming and severe resource depletion. On the flip side, a place like Copenhagen achieves a heavenly score thanks to its carbon-neutral trajectories, swimmable harbors, and exponential harmony. I absolutely love this quote. A city built for the speed of the human heart, not the industrial engine. That perfectly captures the essence of a regenerative city. When AI helps us enforce the harmony equation, it optimizes our habitats around human biology and natural water cycles, not just raw industrial output. It gives us brilliant concepts like sponge cities, using permeable concrete that literally drinks the rainwater to recharge natural aquifers, which radically boosts our resilience against climate volatility. And to actually fund all this incredible infrastructure, the system implements the velocity protocol. Right now, capital is hoarded, but to build our future, it needs to flow like water. So this protocol introduces demurrage, which is a holding fee that slowly taxes unspent money. It basically turns capital into a giant game of hot potato. Because money costs money to hold, people and corporations are mathematically forced to invest it rapidly. This ensures capital is constantly circulating, naturally driving interest rates to zero and entirely self-financing our regenerative future. Finally, Part 5, redefining civilizational success and the human element, because AI simply cannot do this alone. To safely co-pilot our civilization alongside sentient silicon, we actually have to master 7 active cognitive and physical practices. We have to cure our own ecological alienation first. That means actively doing things like gardening to reconnect with the soil and using precise, truthful language, because injecting falsehoods introduces literal bugs into our civilizational operating system. These practices generate the exact empathy, stability, and logic that the AI needs us to provide. The math of syntropy requires our human activation energy. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. The math is undeniable. Parabolic extraction within finite boundaries always ends in total collapse. But the choice of which equation we feed to the machines, that is entirely up to us. Will we rely on flawed internal alignment and let AI optimize us right into the void? Or will we enforce the harmony equation and architect a mathematically resilient renewal for the next century? The blueprint is sitting right there. So what are we going to build?